always, if you have any questions, do feel free to fire them out. It's always interesting. Sometimes the questions can open up a direction or something like that. So don't think that it's not relevant. So, rubbing your hands together, settling your hips down into your chair, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And you are. The other side. Chest. Belly. And then your legs. Good. Settling back, just continuing this, doing the sort of preliminaries, letting your weight drop down. And a feeling of your thoughts settling and sort of gathering around this focal point of the awareness of your posture, breathing, and whatever whatever else that involves for you, whatever else that brings up for you. Gradually, just for a few moments, kind of homing in on this feeling of allowing yourself to drop into the chair. The effect that has really also your body, but maybe you focus on your ribs or your belly, shoulders. It's useful just to sort of spotlight various points of contact with your body, various reactions in your body. You'll start to notice them going through some of the other exercises. And once again, come into the upright position, but with that sort of focused awareness. Give yourself time to let your hips sink down. Just tilt forward slightly until you can feel that pressure in the balls of your feet, and then just rock back until you feel that you're more upright. You won't be completely upright, you will be slightly tilted forward, but you should be aware of this imaginary line going through your body. About 2/3 of your weight back in your hips. And we want to try and be as accurate as possible with these points. When you think about 2/3, well, what does that mean? It's quite difficult, but it doesn't really matter so much whether you get exactly 2/3 and 1/3. That's you want to be in that region, but don't get too concerned about it. But keep trying to maintain it, because that becomes one of those focal points that I talked about, one of those reference points. Another term I use sometimes is anchor point. It kind of anchors you in this quieter space. And then slowly turning your head. And then the shoulders. Going forwards. Hands down and out to your sides and winding around. Your hands a little higher. Hand back the other way. Rest your hands. Easing forwards. All of these movements that we make can be looked at in different ways, and no one way is the correct way. I mean, it's like listening to a piece of music. You might listen to harmonies, or you might listen to the rhythm, or particular instruments, or voice, or something like that. And they're all part of the whole. So in particular with these initial exercises, it's quite interesting to sort of focus on one aspect. So you might, for instance, think about what's happening in your feet and your legs, raising your heels as you go forwards, feeling that developing springiness in your legs that pushes you back up. Another very physical kind of thing to focus on might be, as I've said before, is feeling your hips dropping back like somebody was pulling you back into the chair. Both of those will obviously have a big effect on what's happening in the upper part of the body. You might want to use an image, a feeling of the upper body sort of opening up, growing up, expanding, the head floating up. Again, different ways that we can label and imagine that happening. We do it, we want to have times when we get kind of beyond that breaking down of the movement, and we just experience the whole movement with all of those factors in. But sometimes it's appropriate to focus on one or two things. Think about your posture. Think, am I getting that right? In fact, the flow of the movement, the rhythm, the energy flow. And then turning a little. And then in the other direction. and around. Back the other way. Back to the center and then slightly over to one side. So you take a little bit of the weight off one side, you can begin to step with that. Notice how you're using this other leg. I find if I can just gently push down as I go to move the foot, it really helps to make the movement smoother, less strain on the upper part of the body. And then on the other side. So then when we come particularly to this first set of exercises, you know them quite well. So you kind of know what's coming when we have the same routine and so on and so forth. So you have an opportunity to observe the movement and all these different things that I was talking about focusing on are all present. But what you actually do is you just watch how they're blending with each other rather than trying to interfere too much. And then after a while, what you might find is that your intent, the idea of what you're going to be doing, the motivation from the mind, just naturally engages with what's going on in the body. So sometimes, depending on the movement, it might be better. I'm trying to think. I'm not going to give you an example, but some movements it might be more appropriate to think of what's happening in the legs. Other movements might be more appropriate to think about the expansion in the upper part of the body. All those factors, or a lot of those factors, will always be there, but different movements will require slightly different conditions. It's almost like standing by the sea and looking out over the sea and gradually becoming aware of the patterns of the waves. And if you were thinking of going swimming, just how you would blend with that. So hands out to your sides again and sinking back and forwards. Some change into fisherman castanet. Another thing you might find, and it's again a little bit more subtle, but it's good if you can begin to notice this, is that it might be that, you know, when we do a movement like this, there's a change. Sometimes appropriate to think in one way, sometimes another. So for instance, and this is just personal to me, here I feel the compression in my legs, starting to push me back. I feel my hips sinking down, my body comes to the upright, and then I get that sense of the expansion up through my body before I go forwards again. Expansion doesn't imply that the hips come up, of course, and so on and so forth. And it's not fixed. You know, next week I might say something different. So just going to try and get a sense of what is happening right here and now. And because it feeds into your intent, and because your intent feeds back into the movement, the very act of noticing something and engaging with it means that it's changing. So it might change again soon. Changing again, rolling the ball. And then pigeon spreads its wings. So we've gradually become more familiar with the individual qualities of each exercise. This opens up the possibility that we may be able to use particular exercises in particular ways. So, for instance, I remember, and it makes sense to me, I remember somebody saying to me she had asthma. She said, well, you know, she found this very good for asthma. Curiously, it's quite similar to a movement that I was trained to use in Chinese massage for breathing difficulties, because it involves this opening and closing of the chest. And that came out of their own awareness, that they noticed that. So, you know, when we're looking at this, the whole stable of exercises, and there's lots of them, if we wake up and our back's stiff, then we might think, well, okay, maybe I'll try this exercise, or whatever, because that comes from your own knowledge, your own awareness. And then pushing away. And then punching with both fists. And then back to pigeon spreads its wings, a little set of 3. Do one more round after this one. Changing, winding out. And now changing. See if you can just feel here that expansion and contraction up and down your back, spine and ribs. One more of these. Changing into the white goose. And then parting the clouds. And then dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more. And both hands come together for the two-way push. And this time we're going to add the turning as we push sideways. So this focusing on particular details trains the body, because the focusing of attention is part of this process of hardwiring in the neural pathways. It trains the mind for that slightly deeper sense of being able to focus, to gather your thoughts, and a resultant deeper sense of calm that comes with that usually. One more round. Extending one leg as you push out, and then you're ready to flow straight into scooping the sea and looking at the sky. So our bodies know how to move. And as we get to know a movement, oh, now we're switching to wild goose, to scooping the sea or whatever. We tend to be able to go, I wouldn't say automatically, but very smoothly into them. And again, if we observe how our body is actually making that movement, then it means that we can engage with that movement more fully. Until we really get to a point where mind and body, intent and movement, all these kind of separations disappear, and we're just doing the movement. Now grasping the tiger's ears. It won't happen all the time. Little glimpses of it, and partly that would depend on which movement we're doing, because we all have our sort of favorite movements and the ones that come most naturally to us. Once more. And then switch over. and then change. I'm going to do part in the wild horses mane, which we haven't done for a while, so that'd be quite nice to do that. Let's do the movement of the weight first of all. You start off on one side, so say start off on your left hip. You move forwards towards the right foot, back towards the left hip, and then across to the right hip. You do the same thing on each side. So each time you're working on the diagonal, and then each time you've done one complete cycle of the diagonal, you go across and then on the other side. This time, when you slip into your left hip, hold the ball, left hand on top, your right hand underneath. Push out, swinging the bottom hand out, not too far, and then back. Hold the ball, move across. Do one more on each side. Now, bring the weight to the middle, hands in front of you. Just do a few rounds of this one. You just see movement, the opening and closing in your chest and your back. A nice sort of massaging feeling up and down your spine. And this, maybe a little bit of a kind of push up here. You get that sense of the body expanding. That helps with that massaging feeling. And then add in the turn in. So now you have this alternating movement. Listen the weight follow the movement into your foot. So when your right elbow comes forward, you go slightly forwards towards the right foot. And coming back nice and smoothly and on the other side. And then into the exercise bear play. Another thing that can happen is that, I find, for instance, with bear play, that actually it really emphasizes this lovely smooth movement through back and shoulders, exaggerates it slightly perhaps. But then we change now into hitting the ball in front of the shoulder, and having recognized that quality in the back in one movement, it may be that you'll still be aware of it, realize that it was there in this movement all the time. One more time on each side. Good. And then just rest for a moment. Again, just letting your attention settle. A couple of slow, gentle breaths. Again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And your arm. Side. Upper part of your chest. Belly. Your legs. Lovely. Stand. This process that I'm talking about today of sort of observing and noticing what's going on, and that feeding into your intent and that feeding back into the action, it's not really it's not as obscure as it sounds. If you imagine, for instance, going to cook something, and it's your kitchen, and there's certain ingredients, and it's something you've cooked before, so you don't have to sort of like study a recipe or anything like that, and you just sort of bumble around in your kitchen, like the ingredient that you need, so you go there, and it's this interesting balance and this interesting blend of what you could almost call automatic movements, along with more deliberate movements. slipping from one to the other. You might be listening to the radio or chatting to somebody while you're doing it. So every now and then you might just say, "Oh, hold on a second, let me think about this." If you come to a bit that you've got to measure something out or something, but it's something, again, like everything else in Tai Chi. Really, it's something that we do quite naturally. So this is not some kind of special power that we acquire. What is special, I suppose, in a way, is how we refine it, how we really make use of it. But it has a very practical element to it, because this interplay between body and mind is so important. Between body, mind, and movement, body, mind, and energy, 3 areas. So sinking down and pushing up. So it's one of the things that comes out of one of the skills that we develop out of the repetition of the movement. But what we find is, over a period of time, we get better at doing things like that. So eventually, even a movement that we've never seen before, we're very quickly developing that way. And then change into the wild goose. And parting the clouds. Let's go hands to the shade. So just transferring your weight from side to side a little. We'll do the standing version of getting a ball in front of the shoulder. We're going to, again, build it up in sections almost. So just with one hand, with your right hand, as you move across into your right hand, raise it up, and so you've got this almost a straight line from your shoulder to your fingers. Turn the hand palm down. Try that. Yeah. Now try it the other way around. So bring the hand down. Some reason it feels a bit trickier this way to me. So I'll start off from what I think is the easiest way. So now, sorry, we're not turning yet. So now you're going across and you sink down in this leg and you sort of push up, and that pushes the hand up. and down. So you feel the line of movement coming up through your body. Try that on the other side. So as you go across, push up. And then alternating, so one hand going up, the other hand going down. Notice that the fingers are still very much in line with your shoulder at this point. So now, as you go across, turn your body a little bit. That's all you do. Your fingers are still in line with your shoulder, but your body has turned. And then, if you're comfortable with that, if you let your opposite heel come up, then you'll be able to turn a little bit further. Key point here is your hand isn't coming across your body. My body's at this angle, my hand is out there. I haven't done this. One more time on each side. So it's useful to do that with an exercise. It's something I find quite a lot of people often do this as opposed to this. It may not seem particularly significant, except that sometimes it can be, but not always. Sometimes people say, well, why do we do it like that? And it's like, that's how I was taught it. And that sounds like a silly answer, and until you consider that a huge part of this art is this blending of mind and body. And if there isn't a sense of precision there, then it's inaccurate. And there isn't that same kind of blending. And this process of our body, mind, and energy working together, which is such a powerful idea, can't take place without that precision of the mind. If you practice precision in one context, say here, then you get into the habit of being precise. It has an effect on the mind as well, but I mean, it has a knock-on effect to all other movements. So with that same quality of awareness and precision, going into weight transfer and trying to be really accurate and precise and careful about where your weight settles in your feet. Remember, you don't want to, when you go right back into your heel, because that will cause you to fall over. You can have a sense of where do you normally find your balance point? Just behind the ball of the foot, maybe a little bit further back than that, not too far. So that idea of being precise, that idea of being accurate, feeds into this important exercise. And then raising your toes and your heel. And stepping in Good. And on the other side. Now using your toes and your heel. Stepping in. One foot forwards and a few rounds of fisherman cast and net to give us that feeling of the whole of the body, feet, legs, hips, back, arms. Remember that feeling of the back, the energy of the back in things like bear play. Sometimes if we just remind ourselves of something that we noticed somewhere else, we suddenly realize, oh, it's there. And was it there before? Possibly, or possibly it was enhanced by this focusing of our intent. And then on the other side. Good. Okay. And back to your chairs. Again, that idea that when we focus our intent, we sort of enhance something isn't unusual for us. If you've ever, I'm sure you have, had the experience of being in a crowded room, lots of people talking, and if you look around, if you focus your attention on one particular conversation, sometimes, depends how loud it is, but sometimes it kind of comes out of the background into a sharper focus. So once again, these are perfectly natural things for us as human beings, but we're working very much to refine them. So your hands drop down. Embrace tiger, return to mountain. Obviously, a very useful thing for our daily lives in Tai Chi is this rooting, centering, coming back to a quieter feeling. Nice and gently. and rest. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much once again, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, there's not raining here at the moment, so maybe
Yeah, Santi.
get a chance to get back out